Golden. That's golden. That your body is built in the kitchen. I love that. I've never heard that before. That's great. That is
Yeah.
a golden insight. That's a golden insight. I love what you just said, which is you don't need to look for abundance just in the bank account. Io, thank you so much for joining me.
It is a pleasure. It's a real pleasure.
And
Real
I'm loving your shirt, which I know we just discussed. So I'll start off by just introducing you to everyone who's listening today. So Ayo Johnson is a keynote speaker and mindset well-being coach with 35 years of experience in both strength training and also in bodybuilding. And having spoken to him before myself, he's also just a wealth of knowledge. An absolute wealth. So I've been really, really excited about today's podcast because basically I'm just going to learn loads by the end of it. So I'm really excited about it.
Feeling is mutual. We're going to learn a lot from each other.
Good. So Aya, if you would mind, why don't you tell us a bit about what you do now? We'll start with what you do now, and then maybe we'll find out about what you used to do.
I'm a keynote speaker. I speak to organizations, companies, any company that has a human resources department, people who want to improve in any way, shape, or form. It could be in sales, it could be in managerial, or what they call soft skills. I go in and I speak to them about mindset, about well-being, about wellness in the workplace, specifically in the workplace. I also train people because I've been training for a very long time. I started that many years ago when I was about maybe 13 or 14.
13,
And
that's really young because I thought I was young.
well,
Yeah, yeah, because
yeah,
I was around there, but I think I was more 14, 15-ish. But that's really, really young.
yeah, I started with push-ups. I started
Okay.
with push-ups, but that'll come later.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I also work as a voiceover artist.
Which
So
is no surprise because this is a hell of a voice.
yeah, it's a bit raspy at the moment because some kind of weird head cold thing got me on Saturday, and still haven't got my sense of smell back, which is very odd.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
know.
I think we know those symptoms from somewhere at
We
some
don't
point
use the
in the.
word anymore.
No, no.
No, we don't use that word.
It's
But
like
I
saying
seriously,
Voldemort. You're not allowed to say it.
no, we don't talk about it. But I literally had a head cold and lost my sense of smell. But
Uh,
life goes on.
yeah, yeah. That
The
happened to
show
me. And
must go on.
it scared me because I have an incredible sense of smell. So my
Hmm.
dad's a cook and I love cooking. And
Hmm.
but they say, taste your food as you cook. My sense of smell is so good that just through the smell, I'll even know if it needs salt. I know that sounds weird, but
No, not
you
weird.
have it?
I'm the same. I'm the same. And my wife said to me, she said, "How is it you don't taste your food?" I said, "I can smell it. I can smell it. If there's too much spice in it or if it needs salt, I can smell it." You're the first
You're
person
the
I've
first
ever,
person. That's amazing. Genuinely, I've never met someone who has the same skill. That's
I haven't
insane.
either. I cook and I do it by just because if I start tasting, then I'm going to get all involved with the hunger. No,
Yeah, yeah, I'm the
no,
same. Yeah, I'm the
no.
same. And I like the anticipation of sitting down to eat it.
Of
It's like,
course, of
it's
course.
the anticipation. I feel like if I've been like almost like snacking on what I've been eating, like it loses some of like the joy when I eventually get to it.
We're speaking the same language. I've never met anybody else. Seriously, this is history. We're making history here.
I love it. People are watching this on YouTube or even on just put in the comments if you have this as well. That would be really interesting to
Yeah,
find
let's
out.
find our
Is
tribe.
there other people? Yeah. So that was your kind of the beginning of your journey into kind of strength training, and then so how did the wellness side bit come out? How did the mindset training come into life?
Well, it's very much hand in hand with
Okay.
the bodybuilding and with the training because part of my history, when I arrived in England, I don't know, 40 something years ago, what I quickly realized was I wasn't very good at sports. Okay, the traditional sports, athletics, the normal sports that black people are good at. I wasn't good at it. I'm being serious. That literally was it, you know. You
Yeah.
can't run, you can't do this. So basically, I started to realize that I had this natural strength of doing 50 push-ups. You know, sometimes I could get up to 100, sometimes, not often. But I realized I had this strength. So I got some inspiration from Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had his film Pumping Iron, and I saw these incredible athletes. You know, I mean, Conan the Barbarian. Who doesn't remember Conan
Mm.
the Barbarian or the
Yeah.
Terminator?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I looked at these people and I looked up to them and I thought, I can do that. So that's where the flame was lit for
Mm.
bodybuilding. Because obviously I wasn't allowed anywhere near weights until I was 16. When I
Yeah.
left school, I went to another school. And at 16, I was able to start training. And what I did was I very quickly just got into training as much as possible. I fed off the magazines, of the pictures, the training regimes of the champions. And the first thing I wanted to do was enter a competition, which was the World Amateur Bodybuilders Association, south of England.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, south of England. I came second in that one. So
Nice.
I got myself a trophy. And over the years, because bodybuilding is a very visual sport,
Yeah.
but it all starts from here.
Mm.
You start with a vision of what you want to achieve, and you have to learn delayed gratification. You have to learn discipline. So I basically got very much into this mindset of I need to become better and better and better, win more competitions. I won a few, I came second in a few, I came third in a few. But what I very quickly realized was I hadn't done the inside work.
Ah.
I hadn't done the inside work. What I was doing was I was building the outside and I hadn't fixed the inside. And this is where the journey of the mindset. I know I said bodybuilding starts from here because obviously you go to the gym, you have an idea of what you want to, achieve in that workout.
Yeah.
But on a deeper level, you need to figure out what is it that you're chasing. And for me, it was validation. I need some kind of
Mm.
validation. So even when I was, in the early 90s, big, I hadn't fixed inside. So this is where the
Mm.
journey started. It was the search for higher ground on the internal level to
Mm.
find out how I can be a better version of myself, because everybody loves an upgrade.
Mhm.
Everybody
Did
loves an
did your
upgrade.
wife say that?
It's only been 7 months,
Yeah,
so not yet.
yeah.
But yeah, literally, when you look at your laptop, you look at your phone, you look at, you get onto a plane, you walk past business class, you'd love an upgrade, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, if they tell you you've been upgraded, you love it. So this is the same with us, with our personalities, with who we are. We always want to be better. So for me, my journey in bodybuilding and my journey in mindset and wellness, it all goes hand in hand. Now,
Mm.
obviously, my priorities have changed a long time ago, maybe in my maybe early 40s, mid 40s. My priorities changed because it wasn't about big muscles or competing. I stopped competing a long time ago. It was more about the wellness in here. Because I'll
Mm.
tell you something, during the lockdown, um, you remember old gyms were closed for like six
Yeah,
months.
yeah.
I had a friend who used to run a gym in some part of South London. I can't remember the name, and he said he didn't realize how many people were susceptible to mental health issues until they couldn't train, and it was when they
Wow.
couldn't train they
Interesting.
started to go downhill.
Wow. Do you know what
Yeah,
that I couldn't agree more because I remember when I was at uni and the uni gym was so rubbish. Like it was just terrible. And I was used to gymming a lot. And because I took a year out and I basically was just going to the gym 5 days a week, 2.5 hours a day.
yeah,
And when I came to you, I was like, I can't train this gym. And my dad paid for me to go to David Lloyd gym because he
Mhm.
recognized that the impact of not going to the gym on my mental health was so big, he was willing to pay for my gym, so because it made a huge impact on me. And so I totally resonate with the influence that having and I would imagine it's the same for all sports. Mine was also bodybuilding. We just seem to be very alike in many ways, but that was one of the things for me as well. So bodybuilding was my thing. I wasn't sporty or athletic or into any of those things. But when it came to bodybuilding, not that I
Mhm.
competed, it was part of my well-being. My mental health needed it, even just to function. Even just to function as a human, it was absolutely necessary.
This is the truth, and most people didn't realize how much more of a mental game it is to go and lift weights. It was just natural until it was taken away. And when it was
Yeah.
taken away, people didn't have any other outlet. For me, lockdown was an incredible time of growth because I could go for walks, 2, 3, 4 mile walks before breakfast.
Mm.
I was in the park around 5, 6 a.m., and I'd come home around 8:30, 9, and then I started running up hills, short sprints because I thought, well, I
Mm.
can't lift weights, so I'm going to do something that I'm traditionally not good at.
Yeah,
Start
yeah.
running,
But in a
sprinting.
resistance training kind of way.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever it was, it had to be physical. And I was always listening to audiobooks. So for me, it was a huge period of growth. I mean, I lost a huge amount of weight. I went down to 97 kilos at one point, and yeah, I'm 104 normally, but I went down to 97. But for
Okay.
that time, it really was a growth period for me. So weight training is something, it's very much mind and body. And it wasn't
Mm.
until it was taken away from people that they realized how much more of a mind game it is.
Do you know, you make me think of something. So when often if there's people in the gym, you want to share a machine, they go, how many sets have you got? Can I jump in between this kind of thing? I always really enjoy that when that happens because I quite like training with people, and it's been a long time since I had a training partner, so I like it when people jump in. And but often it will be people who maybe doesn't push as much as I do, right? So I like to challenge people. And what I say is, and the common thing I say to people is, I say, if you're really struggling with it, let's put your weight up and I'll spot you properly. So just my
Yeah.
fingers are there, right? And what this will do mentally is your brain will then be, or your mindset will be convinced that you're able to do the weight that's higher. So then when you go down to the one you were struggling on, you're able to do it easily. And so this is like a training technique that I use to myself. So whenever I found myself struggling, I'd ask for someone to spot me, put a weight on, and then on my own take the weight off, and I wouldn't struggle. And so that's how I managed to increase very, very, very quickly in my strength. But it took a
Yeah.
long time to kind of figure that out. But it's a really
Yeah.
interesting thing. And I think what I'm hearing from you is you adopted a similar approach, but for the internal work. All right.
Yes, yes, I did. Yes, I did. I mean, spotting is huge because when I spot people, I just use 2 fingers, especially if it's a
Exactly.
bench,
Yeah.
and
And not
they
even
believe.
facing
They're
up.
like,
Just
did you help me?" I'm like, "No, I just put 2 fingers underneath the bar," and they're like, "Really?" And then you can see the pride.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
can see the pride when I train with people. People always say, "Oh, I can't train with you because you're so, you." I said, "Listen, whatever it is you're lifting, let's go with that." I mean, this is something we'll come on to later on when I talk about failure, the bodybuilding
Uh,
formula for success. Well, I'm going to go into that later, but you know, it's incredible what the barriers that people will put on their capability and
yeah, yeah.
what's possible for them
Yeah.
until someone's there to almost give them permission.
Yes. Yes. I'm
Yeah.
really happy that you said that. Permission, having permission to do it. So I think a lot of
Yeah.
it is Dante. Really simple things, but a lot of this, I believe, is to be very, very unconscious. They're unconscious thought patterns. But as you say, when you give someone permission, they don't even know that they're being given permission. They don't know that actually the subconscious understanding of that is going, oh, well, now I can do it.
Exactly it. That's exactly it. Most people are
Really
not
interesting.
aware. It's only when somebody else is there that you think, okay, now I've really got to, and
Yeah.
because when there's a spotter there, there's no danger.
Yes.
especially with the squat.
Yeah.
When you're doing squats and somebody's there, you will tend to go a bit lower than you would normally go on your
Yeah.
own, because you
Yeah.
know that somebody will be there to give you a little bit of momentum to come back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it's all a mind game, and this is the journey that brought me to where I am now.
Mm.
It all started off as, how can I be better on this level? I'm not performing on the traditional level, but I can perform on another level.
Yeah.
That literally lit a flame that has burned for 36 years now, 36
Wow.
years since my first competition. 1989 was my first contest.
Wow. That's amazing. That is amazing. So that was the kind of the beginning of this kind of passion, which is it's really wonderful to hear. And so at some point along the journey, you started looking inward, and how did that, how did that unfold for you? How did that begin? Because everyone has a beginning kind of entry point to that kind of thing, right?
Uh, right. How did the journey inwards begin? Well,
Yeah.
what I began to realize was that I built a fortress of muscle, okay? But inside, I still felt something was missing. And I just couldn't put my finger on it. And I really decided I needed to find out what was missing. And for a long time in the 90s, I couldn't figure it out. What I kept feeling was that there was a part of the jigsaw missing, because yeah, I'd had some success training or in competition. And on my outside world, things would happen and I would give it meaning as to not being good enough. And that feeling, when you see an external representation of not being good enough, it keeps that question, you keep asking the same question: what's missing? What's missing? So I think for me, it really began when I set up my own business.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I set up my own business in 2002. It was a concierge business. And that was, for me, the biggest risk I'd ever taken, because before that, I'd worked I got a job in the city. That didn't last very long. So I took that as a meaning,
Uh,
okay, of not
yeah.
being good enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I
It was
worked for,
revalidating the insecurity. Yeah.
this was it. And then I worked for Capital Radio. I was
Oh
a sales
wow. Okay.
executive. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I worked for them for about 3.5, 4 years. And yeah, that was all good. But still,
Mm.
when the company decided to do a restructure, they said, would you like to stay? I thought, no, I'd rather go and work. It was the dot-com boom back then.
Mm.
So everybody was rushing to dot-com. So I thought, I'll go and do that. And that didn't work out too well. So I ended up setting up my own company. And this was when, I've been working from home for since 2002. What's that? 23 years. And when
Wow.
you work for yourself, by yourself, you learn
Mm.
a lot about yourself.
Mm.
Okay. So this is when, the question, it wasn't more questions, but I started to really delve deeper into personal development. I attended a Tony Robbins seminar
Oh
in
really? Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Unleash the
Yeah.
Power Within. I
Yeah.
walked over the hot coals in 2001. That was the first one, and then I did another Unleash the Power Within in 2003, I
Okay.
believe it was. And I just, when you get into personal development, personal growth, you just keep finding out more.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
How can I be better? Because what happens when your results, I mean, in the beginning of running my business, my first client was JP Morgan.
Oh wow. I mean,
Yeah.
hats off to you because that's quite something. Yeah.
Yeah. My first client was JP Morgan. And, they asked me, could you set up I think 3 or 4 day event in Marrakesh? And I was like, I
Wow.
said, "Oh yeah, why not?" And I was like, "Eek, I can't." But
Yeah. Yeah.
I went ahead and I did it. And they started talking about me to other people. The next thing I was speaking to, Goldman Sachs called me, Bear Stearns, Bank of America,
Wow.
Morgan Stanley, and it was all just word of mouth. And it was all
Amazing.
coming in through the window. People were calling me up saying, I heard you did this. Can you please do this? And then the broking companies called me and they started asking me about restaurants. Can you get restaurants?
Ah, okay.
Exclusive restaurants? Because before that, I was just doing events. But after a while, people was like, there's all these restaurants in London that are fully booked. How do we get in? And I said, "Did you know this restaurant?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." I didn't. I
Yeah,
never heard of
yeah.
it.
Quickly Google it.
Yeah, can you? Google didn't exist, I don't think, at that point.
Going through the phone book.
Yeah, well, I think it was Excite or something, one of those
Okay.
search engines. But or there was a number you could dial, and just anyway, I basically had to learn and call up these places and start introducing myself and of course, at that point, your self confidence is not quite there because
Yeah.
you don't know if they're going to reject you.
Fake it till you make
So,
it. Yeah.
personal growth starts with not only wanting to be better, but it also looks at what are your results. So, when I'd phone up a place and I'd be honest with them. I'd tell them, listen, I've just started my business. I've just had a very important client call me, and and I would weave them a story. And it's a story based on the truth, like
Yeah.
need help. And it was very different to what a lot of other because American Express and there were other concierge companies that would call up restaurants and say, "Oh, we must have this, and it's for a VIP and blah blah blah. Why can't you get?" And I was literally saying, "Look, I'm being honest with you. I'm a one-man band, and that building that connection was so important because people bought into that, and my relationship."
Authenticity knows no competition. Love it.
That was it. So, and then if I got a table, I would go to the restaurant afterwards and give them flowers with a thank you card. That was my signature. So
Nice.
people, next time I called, they're like, "Oh, Ayo, yes, lovely flowers you gave us last time." This was how I built my brand.
Wow.
It was called Velvet Rope Service, but yeah, because in the beginning it was just velvet rope, getting them past the velvet rope into exclusive events all over the world. But
Right.
this was it, and that added to personal growth because as far as I was concerned, being authentic and being honest was my way, and not demanding. If people said, "I'm sorry, we can't help you, it's fully booked," I would still take their name and I would still go there and give them something to say, listen, I understand things have been busy, but I just want to thank you for trying. And they were like,
Mm.
why is he giving us a little gift when we couldn't help him?
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's a
Yeah.
really, really interesting. Yeah, I think it's hats off to you because I think that is uh it's a journey for most people. To have that level of authenticity is not natural as a way of being all the time. So to be able to start your business and have this really authentic approach, this very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable approach. And the interesting thing with vulnerability is that's actually where your superpower exists. By being vulnerable, you find your power. And so there you are displaying wonderful, vulnerable, authentic you. And as a result, it empowered your business and it empowered you. So I think absolutely wonderful journey to listen to. And I think anyone listening to that would be really inspired. So I absolutely love that.
Well, yeah, it's for me, authenticity and vulnerability, it's the human condition, except some people add the cloaks of importance. So I'm like, for instance, I had one restaurant, very famous restaurant. It had just opened actually, but a lot of people were desperate to get tables there. And you'd have PAs of the chief CEO, chief executive of banks, like, oh, it's for him, and you've got to do this, and all this pressure. And there I
Mm.
was calling them up and saying, listen, it doesn't matter who the person is. As far as the restaurant is concerned, everybody's important.
Yeah. It's a
Okay.
paying customer at the end of the
So
day. Yeah.
exactly. Now, the fact that my clients were going to be spending a higher than average spend, I didn't say, oh, they're going to be spending lots of money. I just said they're very valuable to me. And my
Mm.
relationship is very important because I've just started this company. So
Mm.
they wanted to help, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
they wanted to help on that level. So yeah, that's how I did it.
It's interesting that, isn't it? Because innately, as humans, one of the most rewarding things for any human is helping another.
Yeah.
And actually, when you do ask for help, people are willing and they're wanting. Generally speaking, as a human race, we are willing and wanting to help each other. As whenever is possible, without it being at a detriment of ourselves or the detriment of somebody else. So, I think that is another good learning from what you've described there.
Yeah.
It's
People,
okay
people
to ask for help. People want to help.
ask, ask, but don't ask from a place of, I need this, I must have this.
Yeah.
Like, is there any way? Yes, we're fully booked. Is there any way you can help us? Help me
Mm.
because X, Y, Z. There was a story that I would put, sometimes I'd weave a story around it. Like, a client says, sent me an email 3 weeks ago and I didn't see it. And now he's landed in London and now I'm in trouble. Can you please help save my neck?
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah, 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 and it's having the confidence to even ask in the first place. Yeah, I think that can be a lot to do with it. I think this is the case often with new businesses, is just having the confidence to ask. You don't get new business unless you ask for new business. And in essence, this is what you're asking. You're asking for business, just indirectly as a concierge.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
reminds me actually of this time me and my girlfriend we went to a pub here in Brighton. It's on a place called Devil's Dyke. It's a really busy place whenever it's sunny. Anyway, it's got a sign outside. It says "We're full," and my girlfriend goes, "Well, never mind." I said, "Give me a second." So I walk in, and I'm quite a cheeky chappy. I don't mind asking in a nice, respectful way. Anyway, so I go in and
Mm.
sit there. I said, "Have you got any tables?" And she says, "Did you not see the sign?" Quite bluntly. I said, "No, I saw the sign, but I said." There's a table right there, though. I said, when are they due? She said, well, in 45 minutes. I said, how quick is the kitchen? Well, your food will come out in 10. I said, we'll be gone in 45 minutes. She goes, well, go on, take the seat. You've got to have the audacity to ask.
Yes,
If you don't
yes.
ask, you don't get. You've got to ask.
Yeah, yeah. And it is the manner of asking as well. It's
Yeah.
walking in with a smile and understanding. If somebody says, "Didn't you see the sign?" Most
Yeah.
people say, "Well, I have got eyes; I can see the sign."
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
actually, other people will say, "Yeah, I saw it, but when is
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
coming
Exactly.
due?"
Yeah.
And this is how we move forward in life. I think some people have forgotten this art of just being humble and
Humble.
just
Yeah.
going forward and just saying, hey, listen, I know this is the situation, but is there something you could do for us? Or if there's
Yeah.
something you can do.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I think again, I like that you use the word humble because it requires humility to be able to take the rejection because you're just asking uh, without the desperation of the answer being yes. So you're going, I'm just asking, So if it's a no, you can with humility go, okay, at least I asked.
There's no attachment.
Exactly. There's no attachment to the outcome. So going
Mhm.
back to your journey. So obviously you started your business and I love everything that I've heard already around how you were able to build your business and building really close personal relationships, which in that industry I'd imagine are absolutely second to none in
Yeah.
importance. So you obviously really understood that from the get-go. And then so from a personal journey and going inwards, what did that trigger for you? What were the things that coming up that you realized that needed to change within you?
Um, if I'm going to be very honest with you, I was operating at 30% of my capabilities running the
Right.
concierge business. Yeah. Because, I was on the phone. I literally had my headset. I would be on the headset chatting to people and, making things happen for very successful people. I mean, I had a client that was worth 100 million, and he was always calling me saying, "Can you do this? Can you do that?" And I, excuse me, I always ask myself, what is it about them that makes them so successful? I know they work in finance and they obviously studied, but I'm here making things happen for them. There's more. There's more in here in this gold mine. So I started to look at what my personal gifts were. Now, obviously, back in, I think, 2002, my father asked me to do a master of ceremonies, to be a master of ceremonies at his 70th birthday party. And I said, I mean, there's going to be about 300 people there. And I said, no. I said, no, 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 I can't do it. He said, no, 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 you're going to do it because you're going to be good at it. And I thought, I've never spoken in front of people before. This is going to be scary. But he had told me it's his 70th. And I have to do it. So I was so worried about it that I started planning it months before, what the structure would be, how I'm going to do this. And from that event of his 70th, I had other family members. My aunt was turning 70. She said, "You're going to be master ceremony at my 70th." And then my cousins were getting married, one in New York, one in Atlanta. Said, "Oh, could you be master ceremony at my wedding? Can you be a speaker? Can you do this?" And I was thinking, hold on a second. People were all of a sudden, family members, friends were asking me to speak at important parties or weddings or yeah. So I didn't, it didn't click at that point, but people were telling me, you have a gift. You have a gift. You know, when you speak, people listen to you. And at that point, I still was not quite 100% sure because running a concierge business was my thing. This was my main thing. But then I started to look into it and I started to understand that actually this is my calling, So I started to learn more about speaking in front of people, how to deliver a message, and how to tell a story, because everything is about telling stories in life,
Mm,
So this is what sort of led me into public speaking. And,
mm,
obviously with the wellness, I wouldn't say wellness, with the mindset coaching, I had to coach myself first. I had to
mm,
be my own coach
mm,
because it's not just the coach of lifting weights. It was like, actually, hold on, you need to have more belief in yourself.
mm,
So, setting up the business was a big risk. Now that was going really well. Everything was going amazing, but still, I'm looking at my clients thinking, you guys are so successful in what you're doing. How can I get better? I'm here coordinating your lives, doing, wedding proposals, booking private jets, booking boats, booking villas, and you guys are out there enjoying it with your earnings, with your great incomes. So what else is there for me? So this is how I decided I need
mm.
to step my game up and use some of my own personal gifts better.
I think that I think that the wonderful thing that I'm hearing there is just the level of self-reflection that you've had along the way, and always challenging yourself. And I don't think that that is everybody. I think that people will get stuck in roles maybe their whole life because
Yeah.
they don't want to challenge themselves. And so I think it's very inspiring to hear on when you've seen what's possible, you then challenge yourself to do it yourself. And I think that that on its own is a really inspiring piece, because I think it is very common for people to feel a feeling of stuckness, where they're
Mm.
stuck in a role or stuck in any living situation. It can be outside of the work, because that stuckness can be anything. It could be with your health, it could be with your fitness, it could be with your relationship, it could be with your work, it could be with your children, it could be anything. But
Mhm.
just getting stuck and not self-reflecting is in my perspective anyway, much more detrimental than challenge yourself, risk it, take the risk.
You have to do it. You have to do it. And I think being stuck it can be like you've heard of the frog in a pan of water.
Mm.
Frog will stay there until it boils to death because it gets used to the water getting hot. Whereas if you take a frog, I don't know if anybody's ever done this. I'm not saying people should do it, but take a frog.
Not
I've never
anyway.
held a frog.
Yeah, yeah.
You take a frog and throw it into boiling water, it jumps straight out.
Yeah.
But people get very accustomed to life as it is, and they begin to. I always see it as life through a lens. People will see life not as it is; they see it as they are, and they will
Mm.
just be stuck and think this is my lot in life. And they'll see other people doing well, and they'll start comparing themselves and putting themselves down, thinking, okay, those are quote unquote rich people, and we don't. They'll start judging.
Mm.
Whereas actually the question is, or the point is to look inwards and
Mm.
start paying attention to what's going on in here, the mental diet. What am
Mm.
I saying to myself? What's my mental inner conversation? And my inner conversation back then was, there's got to be more. There's got
Mm.
to be more. Not more money, not more. It's more of me. What have I got
Mm.
to give the world? How can I share more?
I love that. I love that because fulfillment really it isn't anything to do with money. I'm sure that there's lots of people out there who have been on an inward journey or even just been born that way who feel completely content and fulfilled with what they have, materialistically speaking, without any need of more. But because the inner landscape is already fulfilled. And I think something I notice, I experience this mostly when I'm in nature, is I've when I'm really, really connected to the environment, as in nature environment that I'm in, I will experience such a state of stillness that I
Mhm.
feel so complete that nothing
Mm,
else is necessary.
mm, mm, mm.
And I
Yeah,
think it is totally possible to experience complete content without any material gain. But the contradictory factor being that when you feel like that, normally what then happens is things just come to you.
that
It's like you
that's
accept not having it. It's like I remember not having a girlfriend, and the moment I stopped wanting a girlfriend, I meet them. And I think loads of people experience that version of like the universal joke. As soon as you accept not having it, it goes, "There you are, no problem."
that's it. That's it. The more we want, the more signal of wanting. If anybody's listening that believes in the laws of the universe, you're just sending out more wanting, and you will find more evidence of wanting. Whereas
Yes.
if you have and you feel whole, you will get more of that. You're great, you're
Mm,
grateful, you'll have more to be grateful for. Whereas
mm,
if you're thinking, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, my friend, you already are rich. You just don't
mm,
see your own personal abundance.
mm.
I did a talk on this called "Be Rich Like Fruit." Because people talk about rich and poor. I don't like to use a rich person and a poor person. If somebody's earning 50,000 a month, or let's say they're a millionaire. Okay, let's call them a millionaire. And I'm not a millionaire. Am I poor compared to them? No, I'm not poor because number one is I have life. I have life, I'm rich. Okay, if you
Mm.
look at when I talk about rich by fruit, rich like fruit, a banana is rich in what?
Potassium.
Potassium. A
Yeah,
blueberry is rich in what?
no idea.
Antioxidants.
Okay.
Antioxidants.
Yeah.
Kiwi fruit, rich in what? Vitamin C. Now we're the only species that would think. I know these are fruits; they haven't got consciousness, okay? But I'm just using it as an analogy. All of them are rich in something. We are all rich in something, in potential, in health, in familial wealth, but we tend to always want to have when we talk about richness, it's we've already got it. Imagine, I always said, imagine a cartoon of the bananas looking at the pomegranates thinking, yeah, we're rich in potassium. But those oranges over there, they're rich in vitamin C. We wish we had some vitamin
Yeah.
C. We don't have that, you know. It's feel rich already, and you will
Mm.
get more. You know, that's a whole other talk. But anyway, that's I went off on a tangent.
No, no, that's interesting. It reminds me of an Osho saying, which he says you can't compare yourself to anybody because we're all completely unique. And I think that really relates to this fruit analogy that you said just now. It's interesting.
Yeah,
My own reflection for my own kind of inner riches. Something I've said my whole life is, to be honest, it really doesn't matter how much money I have. The reason being is my favorite thing to do is go for a walk along the beach. And it doesn't matter if I've got 100 million in the bank or if I've got £1 in the bank. My favorite thing is to go for a walk along the beach. Like my necessities in like feeling joy are so simple. They're so easy to facilitate. And they're
yeah,
completely free. I really don't
yeah.
need much at all.
That's your abundance right there.
That's my
If you're
abundance.
looking, if
Exactly.
you're looking for evidence of abundance, don't always look in the bank account.
Yeah.
Okay. The abundance could be the oxygen that you breathe. It could be the scenery that you're enjoying on your
Mm,
walks. It could be the life that you have. That's abundant. You know,
mm,
if you imagine somebody who's worth X amount and they have a health situation that's going to curtail their length of time, they're not abundant in time.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know? So this is the thing, is to always look for what is and what we have right now, and more of that will come.
That
You
is
know,
a golden insight. That's a golden insight. I love what you just said, which is you don't need to look for abundance just in the bank account. I think that is something that every human needs to embody, not just listen to, but really, really embody, because that is absolutely the case. Abundance is not just in the bank account. You can find it everywhere. I used to know this cook. She was a friend of the family, and she wasn't a wealthy woman, but she was so abundant. She loved cooking. She got so much joy from cooking, and she loved feeding people and seeing the joy in their face. She didn't need lots of money. She already was living life so bad. She was this warm human. She loved spending time with other people. And for me, in my childhood, that was always someone I could reflect on as this is a woman living abundantly with nothing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But it looks like nothing, but she
It
had
looks like
everything.
nothing, but she's got everything. She's
She had
already got
everything.
everything. Yeah,
She
yeah,
had
yeah.
everything. Yeah. Whereas I had one client who was due to inherit X amount. I mean, a ridiculous sum, and he was suicidal. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he was
yeah, yeah,
suicidal because
yeah.
he had a couple of bad marriages, and people were constantly trying to take from him, and he used to call me up. I'm like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm asleep." I was asleep, and he just wanted to talk, and I'd be like, "So why are you so upset?" And he said, "Because people just kept trying to take from him." And I just, it's an analogy. You think about it, and you think he on paper he had everything,
Mm,
and here he was very upset. And one day, we were having a drink one day, and he said, "I wish I was a bit more like you."
mm,
I thought, me?
yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, I could do with some of your money, and he's looking at me thinking he wishes he was more like me. Because he said, every
Mm,
time I see you, you got a big smile on your face. You're always so happy. And can you imagine hearing that?
yeah, 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 yeah. I,
Yeah.
th- I think that's a really great example of your your inner experience is really the only thing that's important,
Yeah.
because you can be worth buckets and buckets and buckets. And yet, if internally you're not happy with yourself, it's all
Mm.
meaningless. And I always find that people find it easier to relate it to physical health and mental health. So,
Yeah.
because it's common that someone who's very wealthy would say something on the lines of, take away my health and I'll give you every penny to get it back, because it's so noticeable. When you're physically ill and drained, it's so you can't run, you can't escape it.
Mm.
Mental health, I find people can often try to escape. whether that's by
Oh,
being really too busy, workaholic, taking drugs, drinking alcohol, whatever it is, being in and out of toxic relationships. There's a distraction available from your own inner unhappiness. But when you're physically ill, good luck ignoring it. Like, and so people find it easier to relate. But to me, it's the same thing. Mental health and physical health to me are equal. They're equal both in
yeah.
importance, but in how much capacity it takes up for myself. So healing one thing physically would just be as important and detrimental in an adverse way to my mental health. You know, they go hand in hand.
Mm.
Really, 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 really interesting. And so coming back into, you know, your journey into becoming a keynote speaker, I think it's lovely to hear. The other thing that I was really, really enjoying listening to is, you know, finding your purpose, because I think that that's something that most humans, well, not it's not even humans want to find, but they need a sense of purpose. People need a sense of, people often become parents because they need a sense of purpose, right? And that
Mhm.
often can be the underlying factor to it. Not saying that that's wrong, because I do believe that for some people that is their purpose. They love to be a
Yeah,
parent, you know. So I don't
yeah.
consider that a wrong thing. And so having a sense of purpose, but is also equally fulfilling for you. I think that's the thing, because you can find a sense of purpose of anything, whether that's doing the gardening, the clean, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can find purpose. I've come outside because I'm doing the gardening as an example. But
Mhm.
finding a sense of purpose, which is for your fulfillment, for what you feel like you're here for, is a whole nother level of content living from
Yes,
my experience anyway, or from my perspective. So I
yes.
love the fact that you noticed that for yourself and then took the leap again.
Absolutely, because you know they say public speaking is on a fear scale. People fear that more than death.
But it's very vulnerable. You know, make a
Yeah.
mistake, 10,000 people going to see it.
Well, yeah, people are going to be
All
looking at
eyes on
you.
you. There's
Yes,
no
yes,
hiding.
yes. Yeah. But you know what I realized was that my I don't get up there to talk about my personal journey. I use my personal journey as an example of what
Mm,
can happen. I mean, there's two examples that I'll use. One of them obviously was not being good at sports and having to find something to find validation, you know, which
mm,
was the bodybuilding. And I thank goodness for it because that flame still
yeah,
burns. You know,
nice.
I'm still in the gym, you know, 6 days a week. I
Wow,
train
yeah.
more now than I did in my 20s.
Amazing.
Yeah, because I see, you know, it's therapy, it's everything.
Yeah.
But the other thing was that I use as an example was the fixed mindset. Okay, for instance, when I'm a father, I've got two children, and I wasn't married when my two children were born. So I had this a lot of judgment going on. People were very judgmental about
Mm,
my life. You know, they had all sorts of ideas. So I decided I would never ever get married. Okay. That was my thing because they were telling me you have to get married, you must get married. And I said, well, no, why should you're judging me and now you want me to conform to what you think I should
mm,
be? So, and I lived like this, you know, looking through these lens. I didn't realize that the lens was distorted because we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. So I said, I will never, ever, ever get married. And I was in a relationship with an incredible, incredible human being. But there were some barriers there, like I'm never going to get married. We never discussed it. It was just not there until one day when the transformation came from within, when I just suddenly, I was sitting at home and I just started thinking about our relationship and I thought, do you know what? This is someone who has actually been there through, I mean, we've been together for almost 6 years. And that transformation came from within. It wasn't from an external stimulus. So
mm,
this is what I try to what I express to people that you know when I talk about I use examples. I use myself as an example that don't look on the outside or don't let the outside try to influence you. It must come from within. It must come from you asking better questions about yourself.
mm.
And those questions cannot be, arrows shooting at you from judgment from other people. If the transformation comes from within, it's so much more powerful.
Yeah.
Because I proposed to her and we got married 7 months ago in September. And it was, I mean, it is the best thing that has ever happened to me, but obviously apart from becoming a father, I've got two incredible sons. One's 28 and the other one's 18. But that was something that I sort of birthed from myself. And I
Mm.
explained this to people that, in fact, the most important thing that I try to do is to serve people by using stories. I serve them, I explain certain principles that I have learned in my personal development journey. And I want them to leave that talk feeling as if they've been given tools, not just
Mm.
that they heard something interesting. They have to learn, they have to leave that talk feeling that they've learned something to see that they can look at themselves and think, so that wasn't really about me, in the sense of there's nothing wrong with me. This is normal for other people to feel. So they can take that away and actually do something with it. Because my job
Mm.
is to serve.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for that. That's a really lovely insight about how you do talks, and I think that is gives you a lot of um, well, I think it's just a lot of credibility. There's because you're not just looking at doing a speech per se, but actually providing something. It's providing a value in the way that you deliver it, and it makes me think at the beginning you mentioned that you had some mindset tricks for failure in bodybuilding. Am I right? I
Oh
might be
yeah.
doing the wrong word. So
Yes.
I'd love that to be a little segue into what that looks like, because even for myself, I'm here. I'd be taking notes.
Right. Okay. So now we're going to get into, because when it comes to mindset coaching, what I do is I go first of all into what creates a mindset. Now I'll go through this very quickly so that I don't spend too long. I explain to people what causes a mindset. It's a paradigm. And what is a paradigm? It's a multitude of ideas that are fixed in your subconscious mind. And ideas that are fixed in the subconscious mind can be referred to as habits. And a habit is something that expresses itself without any conscious thought. Or you can see a paradigm as a mental program that has almost exclusive control over our habitual behavior. And almost all of our behavior is habitual. So by the age of 35, 95% of our behavior is a set of memorized behaviors. So, when people feel that they want to change their mindset and they feel as if they're fighting against something, they just can't seem to break through. Understand what it is. It's a mental program that has been built up over over a multitude of years, maybe 2 or 3 decades. And now you say you want to change it. That's 5% of the conscious mind wants to change, and it's pushing against 95% of conditioning. So once people understand what's going on, then I explain to people what the areas of their life that the paradigm has control of: the use of time, the productivity, self-image. Self-image is huge because we will never ever outwork our image of ourselves, which is why some people, they do really well and then they don't do so well, and the performance goes up and down, because if you go past if the result goes past the image you have of yourself, your self-image will bring it back down. This is what happens with lottery winners. People come into a lot of money, and then all of a sudden it's incongruent with the image they have of themselves,
Mm.
and then they lose everything. So I show people that this is what you are dealing with. So and then I show people how to measure the gap between, how to measure their own paradigm, I should say. So it's the gap between what you say you'll do at the beginning of the day, the week, or the month, or the year, and what you actually achieve. Okay, and then I show people how it feels, how the paradigm feels. It can feel like overwhelm, it can feel like confusion, it can feel like tiredness, all of this, or distraction. Okay, because we live in an
Mm,
attention economy. Everything is trying to get your attention these days. If it's Netflix or this or that, and people will feel powerless. They'll think, why can't I just do what I say I'll do? Because Pythagoras
mm,
said, no one is free if he cannot command himself.
nice.
People that want change, but they can't, they feel like they're struggling and they think there's something wrong with them. So I show them that actually, no, there's nothing wrong with you. It's just a case of you need to understand what the paradigm is. And then when I finish doing that, because that's the you versus you, okay? You need to understand who the other you is. When you understand who the other you is, now you can deal with it. Because when you feel overwhelmed, you feel tired, you feel you're struggling, is it you or is it their paradigm? It's the
Mm,
paradigm. And then I show them the bodybuilding formula for success. This is something that I made. It is there's different stages where it looks like a dumbbell. Okay,
okay.
dumbbell needs to be lifted a few times to have an effect. So the first part is planning. Okay, whatever it is we need to do, whether it's buying a house or having a baby or whatever it is, we need to plan. Have a plan how we're going to do this. Okay, because we plan for order, and then the second part is preparation. If you want to change your mindset, you need to prepare for chaos because the
Right.
time is going to put up a fight.
Right. Interesting.
It wants to keep expressing itself. Remember, it's a multitude of ideas that are fixed in the subconscious mind, and that those ideas fixed in the subconscious mind, they express themselves without any conscious thought. So prepare for the chaos because that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a push pull, and most people will give up because they think there's something wrong with them. But if you're prepared, you're going to know that actually, okay, that's what I expect this to happen. I'm going to push through it. The next part of the bodybuilding formula is the diet, because a lot of people think that bodybuilding is all about what you do in the gym. If you train 3 hours a week, okay, 3 times a week, it's 1 hour each. How many times a week do you eat?
Very good point. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah, 3 meals a day is 21 times.
Yeah.
Your body is built in the kitchen. You go
That
to the gym.
I'm just going to pause there. Golden. That's golden. That your body is built in the kitchen. I love that. I've never heard that before. That's great.
The body is built in the kitchen because you go to the gym to tear the muscle down, to tear the fibers down. And then you go out and you have to nourish your body with food, with the right kind of food. So that's actually more important than the 3 hours a week you're doing. Some people are eating 4 times a week. So that's 28 meals a week compared to 3 hours in the gym. Dorian Yates, Mr. Olympia, 6 time Mr. Olympia, he trained 45 minutes a day for 4 days, 4 times a week. 45 minutes, and he was 6 time Mr. Olympia
Wow. Yeah.
because his time in the gym was so intense, so focused that the outside was more important. What he was nourishing himself with the rest and with the nutrition. So that's the diet part. But the second part of the diet is the mental diet. This
Mm.
is huge. This is about your conversations with yourself in a conversation. What do I know someone who, have you ever heard of Ed Milet? Okay, he's a huge personality, very wealthy chap. And I know somebody who got some time to speak to him at his house. And he said something that really hit home. He said his life changed when he stopped listening to himself and started talking to himself.
Mm.
That's the mental diet. What are you
Mm.
saying to yourself? What are you absorbing? Most people, well, some people are constantly on their phones. They're having the outside dictate how they're feeling. They're watching the news. There's nothing wrong with watching the news as long as you understand it's called programming for a reason.
That's very true. I just want
Yeah.
to have another, there's a little golden moment there.
Yeah,
The thing that he said, which was, and I don't know if I'll get the right wording, maybe you can say it back to me. He stopped listening to yourself and start talking to yourself.
that's it.
That's a great saying. That is
Massive,
so good. I love that.
massive, massive.
That's
You know why
really
that's
great.
so big? Because the internal dialogue, when you're talking to yourself, it's usually based on past experience. It's like, the paradigm will, like, for instance, you can be presented with an opportunity, and the paradigm will say, well, hang on a second, how are you going to achieve that when your record, your history shows that? And then you're going to listen to that voice that's
Mm,
showing you what you failed at. That's what the paradigm's doing. It's trying to
mm,
express itself without any conscious thought. So you give up before you've even started. So
yeah.
that's the mental diet part. And then after mental diet, there is repetition, reps, reps, reps. You're not going to get fit from one repetition. You're not going to get fit from 10
It'd have
repetitions.
to be a hell of a rep.
This is it. This is it. Everything that we are is based on repetition. How did you learn to tie your shoelaces?
Mm,
How did you learn that your name was Alistair?
mm,
How many times did you hear that people call you Alistair before you realize, okay, that's my name? How many times did we learn how to write, how to use a fork? Everything is based on repetition, including bad habits. So bad habits could be, I'm a loser. I'm not going to amount to anything in life. My results have never been good. Maybe I lost a home or I lost a business. Those are bad habits, but we don't realize they are because they've been repeated so many times. It feels like normal. It feels
mm.
like normality. So this is what I talk about. There's good repetition, there's bad repetition. So repetition, repetition, repetition is the key to changing mindset because the repetition built it. So repetition will change it. Yeah.
You make me think of my granddad. My granddad was a really successful guy. Also, was very very athletic, and he used to say this saying to me, which was, whether something is good for you or whether something is bad for you, habit makes you like it. And that stuck with me my whole life. And so I've all throughout my life always been really conscious of going, okay, well, if brown bread is better than white bread, I'm just going to eat it until I like it. If having olive oil on this is better than having this, I'm going to have it until I like it. And so
Yeah.
I was always training myself. And now it's innate. It's an innate habit of mine of going, well, if I know it's better for me, I'm going to do it. And there's no internal discussion. If it's better for me, I'm
Yeah.
doing it. End of story.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
I really resonate with what you're saying there
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it makes a
Habit.
huge impact.
Repetition is habit forming. You look at how many times do people sit down a day, the sedentary lifestyle. We don't realize how many times we sit down or how long we sit down for. Whereas, as you can see, I'm standing because I realized for so many years I'd sat down at my desk, just constantly. Then I'd get up and I'd feel creaks and aches. And I was like, do you know what? Let me try the standing and the sitting down as the reward, if I want to have a
Mm.
meal, you know what I mean? But standing is actually going to be the go-to from now on. So repetition is a huge factor in the bodybuilding formula for success. And then after repetition, it's failure. Failure has a bad reputation. Okay, it's got very bad PR. It's true. School.
I love that. It does have a bad reputation. You're right.
Failure has a bad reputation.
Yeah.
School taught us to fear failure. You
Mm,
know, when you got a D or an F, or if your report card was marked with red, we failed. If you didn't pass your GCSEs, you failed. You're a failure. If you came last in the race, you failed. And
mm,
so from a very early age, we saw failure as this terrible thing. Whereas failure, when I talk to people, I tell them to embrace it, not to go out and look for failure. I'm not saying people should go and lose money or lose their home taking risks, but I'm saying that people should learn to see failure as a resource, okay? Because in bodybuilding, in lifting weights, some people I've trained with, they just do 10 reps. And I say, right, then they go and look at their phone for a little while, then they do another 10 reps. And it's like they're walking in the park. No, not with me. You train to 10 reps, I'm going to say, okay, let me see two more. Then they say two more. Before they know it, they've done 16, 17 reps, and they are literally, their muscles are screaming, because you need to go past failure for the muscle to be stimulated for growth. That's where the muscle adapts, because the body gets used to training to a certain level. That's why some people go to the gym, they don't see any growth. Whereas if you constantly change your training regime and you go past the point of failure, if you have a spotter, if you're using machines, it's easier. If you're using free weights, you need a spotter. But failure is where the adaptation happens. So failure in life it's a resource. We've got, spaceships that go up and, a rocket that goes up and explodes. And some people would call that explosion a failure, whereas SpaceX calls it a rapid unscheduled disassembly.
That's brilliant. I haven't heard that. That is amazing.
That's what they call it. Rapid unscheduled disassembly. That's their resource. Do you know how much they're going to learn from that?
Yeah.
No matter how much money they've lost, they're learning from that. Now, we don't all have rockets that we can send up into, we're not trying to get to Mars or whatever, but there's certain failures that we look at and we think that, oh my God, this is going to be so bad, because we're worried about how it's going to look. The faster you fail, the better, because you're fast, that's quicker. That's how fast you'll get to your goal. Whereas some people, like me in the beginning, I was worried about failing. I was like, okay, you want to just play it safe, play it safe, play it safe. And you don't actually end up really going out into the deep water. So failure is huge. It's a massive resource. It's a place that people should go to more often, because that's where you really learn. Most people learn more from their failures. Look at Thomas Edison. Look at Thomas Edison. How many times did he try to do the light bulb? Is it 10,000 or 1,000? I don't even know. But what he said was he had found out 999 or
ways of not doing it.
Not to do it. For any parent who has children, any parents who is listening who have children, between the age of 2 and 4, a child on average falls down 38 times a day.
Jesus.
Yeah. Because they're toddling along, and then they sit down, and then they. Do you think the parent ever looked at that kid and said, "This walking thing is not working out for you"?
Quit while you're ahead, son. Quit while you're ahead.
Quit. Stop. Walking is not going to happen. No, they realize that it's part of, and the child doesn't think, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this." Child keeps getting back up. So that's the failure part. And then the last part is pain. Pain is something that, we want more. We now seek more comfort than pain. If you look at life 100 years ago and they compare it to now, I mean, we wouldn't survive 100 years ago, because, people look for more comfort than they do pain. And pain is another word that has a bad reputation, because people think, oh, you go to the gym and you're going to have some personal trainer saying no pain, no gain, and all this nonsense. I don't believe in that. This happened with my wife. We're training, and the next day I'd say to her, "You feel any pain?" She'd be like, "No." And I'd be like, "Oh, no, really? Okay, let's get back to the gym." And then another time she'd be like, "Oh, my lats are hurting." I'm like, "Good. What else is hurting?" It's my abdominals. I said, "Good. This means you've done well." And she started embracing that. She thought, okay, so if I train and I don't feel anything, then that means my body's just used to it now. Whereas when you come out and you remember when you're sitting on a tube and you get up and you're like, oh, ouch, my legs, ouch, ouch. You think that workout happened, it worked well. This is constructive pain. Destructive pain is when you've torn a muscle and you've hurt
Mm.
yourself and you're in a, you're in hospital or whatever. Where I want people to seek out pain constructively. Another example of constructive pain is people who are taking ice baths.
Ah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
many people do you know now online? You see them in the ice bath and they always got a timer on.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
2 minutes, 3 minutes, four
Yeah.
minutes. Then, because they know that it's painful. Yeah. And even a cold shower, let's say ice bath is a bit extreme. Cold shower. How long can you stand underneath a cold shower?
5 seconds.
Exactly. Not comfortable,
Not
but
comfortable,
people are
no.
doing it because they realize there is something good that comes out of it. They
Yeah.
seek that discomfort, that pain of the cold water, because they
Mm,
know that something good is going to come out of it. So, constructive pain versus destructive pain. Pain is going to be part of changing your mindset, but
mm,
you've got to frame it in the way that it's not going to be painful. Nobody's going to, parade you down the street throwing rotten fruit at you. You didn't succeed. No, it's all going on here. And if you can frame that pain into something that is going to help you grow, like from the
mm,
gym, then you're gonna seek out failure faster. You're gonna do more reps, seek out failure
mm.
faster, and you're gonna embrace the pain.
I think that that's a golden piece of advice
Mm.
because uh, what I relate that to a few different things. I think one of those things is because as you go through an inner journey, there's you have to often face many of your childhood experiences, which can be very painful, inverted commas. And
Oh
the
yeah.
pain in this instance that we're talking about is emotional pain. And typically speaking, at least for the past 5, 6, 7 decades, if not longer, the
Mm.
natural parental instinct has been to don't cry, don't show pain, don't show emotion, don't, this suppression. I think less in our society now, but certainly, let's say 30 years ago or more, that it was all about repressions and repression, repression, repression. And so this, I think, has created an innate fear of emotional pain. When you can change the mindset to that and going, well, actually, this rage, this sadness, this grief, they're all good things, and you are okay with the pain of experiencing it, it now is
Mm.
not so scary. And there's this spaciousness that sits around them, and it allows you to process this stuff much faster, much quicker, because it's, as you say, constructive pain. I couldn't agree with you more. It's interesting. I've just started fasting again. We spoke before about fasting. I already
Yeah, I've
already
not
was
eaten
doing.
today.
I've not eaten today, and I won't be. So I'm doing the 5-2 diet, but I'm not doing it with any calories at all, except from a little bit of coffee. And I changed my mindset the other day. It was because I fasted on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I
Mm.
went for a walk, and around this time actually is normally when I really start to feel it kick in. And I
Mm.
thought I'm going to take myself outside, ground myself, and just what I found myself doing was changing my mindset, going, this pain's good. It means my body is adapting. It means that my body is repairing. And just by changing my attitude to the pain of fasting, the difference it felt in my body was insane. It was because the resistance to emotional pain, the resistance to physical pain creates, from my experience, more pain than the pain itself.
You got it. You got it. Because your brain is saying, "Oh, I'm starving. I need to eat." Whereas now I'm just like, you know what? This is good for me.
Yeah,
This is good for me. And
this is good
when
pain.
it's reframed like that, it's actually, it's not about torturing yourself in
No.
any way. It's about making sure there's enough water in the system, and it's about just understanding what autophagy is.
Mm,
Autophagy is when the cells start cleaning themselves, because when there's nothing else to go on, it drains the body of sugar, first of all. That's all gone. Then it starts to burn off fat.
yeah,
You become fat adapted. And the hunger pangs, as long as there's water, maybe sometimes put a little bit of lemon in it, and
yeah.
it works. I don't know. I have never done a 5 day fast before. I
I've
don't
done
know how you
three,
sleep. 3 day.
3 days.
How do you sleep?
Yeah, the first day is really, really, really hard.
Yeah.
It's this, and I know other people who've done the same, and we all say the same thing, which is day two, you're not fussed, and by day three, it's like you never need to eat again. It's the weirdest experience, but the first day is the hard day, and now I choose to do it 2 days a week, right? So it's interesting. I'm choosing to have the two hard days. But the second day, it becomes very easy. And the third, you don't even consider. I remember the last time I did, it was a 3.5 day fast. On the day that I was allowed to eat, I went beyond it. I didn't eat until the evening because I was so comfortable with not having eaten. I
Yeah.
didn't feel
That
like I
adapted.
needed to eat. It's a fascinating. It's something I've done not with the cold shower or the thing. I don't do ice baths, but I noticed that changing my attitude when walking in the cold. If I'm walking through the cold, going, "Oh, I'm really disliking this," and I go, "Actually, I'm just going to be okay with it being cold." Immediately, it's no longer an unenjoyable experience. It doesn't mean I'm enjoying the experience, but I'm
Mhm.
okay with it. It ends up being just an experience opposed to a bad experience. Really interesting. Just the switch, a tiny,
Yeah.
tiny switch of mindset. Absolutely
Mindset
fascinating.
change. Mindset
Mindset change. Yeah.
change the perspective, reframe it. And yeah, there's a guy I follow on Instagram. He did I think it was a 7 day fast. I think he did.
Ooh, yeah. That's
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah.
yeah. He did it. He did it for a week. And he said towards the end he did start to feel, and he continued to train. He's an
Mm,
ex-bodybuilder. He continued to train, but he did it specifically. I mean, he doesn't do that often. He does normally 2 or 3 days, but it's for him, it's because his body is now fat adapted. Because we're normally sugar burners.
yeah.
We're craving food, the carbs, because we've trained our bodies to be like that. Same
Mm,
thing with the paradigm, with the mental habits. We've trained ourselves to be a certain way. So when we try to change, the body's like, hang on a second, where's my toast? Where's my pasta? Where's my rice? Where's my this? And it's like then people say, oh, I can't do this dieting stuff.
yeah.
I can't do this mindset switch stuff because I don't know why I can't seem to change, because they start blaming themselves without really
Mm,
realizing what it is that they've been doing habitually for
mm.
years. So when I show them this, they're like, oh, okay. So then they begin to know what to expect. And when you know what to expect, it's like, I can handle this.
It's no longer scary. I think
Yeah.
that's definitely been a big thing in my journey is knowing what to expect. Because I remember when working on more significant childhood experiences, I remember my
Yeah.
body would be trembling, and I remember phoning a friend of mine who'd been teaching meditation 30 years, very much involved in this world, and he said, "Alistair, you have nothing to worry about.
Mm.
The body will be holding memory in the muscles and the organs, and when you hit on a core topic, it has to come out somehow." And so when the body started to shake, I was like, okay. And then I was so comfortable with it, it then eased the experience. And I think
Mm.
that, so yeah, I think just knowing what to expect just makes an enormous difference. I
It
absolutely
does.
love this program that you've put together, and I think it, from my perspective, what it does is it really sets somebody up with the right mindset to be changing your mindset, and then going in more into the skill set of how to do that. So I think it's a really nice structure to focus. I've always found structures really help me when tackling these things because they can be quite intense. And so having
Mm.
this structure to follow and giving people
Yeah.
the right perspective behind it, I think is absolutely
Mm.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there's, if I may add one other thing, with regards to changing mindset. Um, it's like if you want to renovate a house, you have to go in and you have to look at, what it is you're going. You don't have to take everything out of the house if you want to renovate it. You want to make changes. So we can't remove everything that we've got in our minds because that's impossible. But what I've done, I actually did this the other day, Sunday and Monday. I think it was Sunday and Monday. It's an interesting exercise, and most people resist it. Okay, get a piece of paper, or no, sorry, a notepad, a book like this, if you can, something small. And every time you have a negative thought for the next 48 hours, just jot it down. And now this is something that first time I did it, I thought, can I really do this? But every time I thought, write it down, write it down, write it down. And then after 48 hours, because a lot of people will think, actually, you know what, I don't want to have a pen and paper because they want to put it in their phones. How many times have you picked up your phone and then you find yourself down a rabbit hole?
Very true. Yeah.
And you can't figure out why you picked up your phone.
Yeah.
People say, oh, just put it in my note section. No. Don't put it in your note section. Write it down, because this is connecting with the brain. So after 48 hours, what I discovered was that there were a lot of memories that were attached to the past. There were a lot of memories that were attached to certain people. And there was a lot of memories of regret, judgment of others, self-judgment. So this gives you a little snapshot, because we've got 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And you're just catching a few of them. So it gives you a little snapshot of what's going on in your mind. Are you focused on the past? Because if you are, that's a great place to start, is to put that to bed, and then to give a clearing for the present, so that you can create the future that you want. But it takes discipline. I would prefer people not to do it during the weekend, because if you're meeting up with friends and then you're sitting down with your friends and you're like, hang on a second. They say, well, what are you writing?
Got his hair cut like that.
What are you writing? Oh, nothing. And then, don't tell anybody what you're doing. Do it during the week. You can sit at your desk at the office, or you can sit on the tube and just, write down a little something. After 48 hours, it gives you a very good snapshot of where your negative thoughts are coming from, where they're rooted, what are they rooted in? And so that's one of the things, one of the little exercises that I give people.
I think that's a really helpful exercise to do, because unless you know the root, you only ever cut the leaves off, or the petals, right? It will keep sprouting back, and it will keep sprouting back, and it will keep sprouting back. You got to go to the root. And so I think any technique that can help identify that is incredibly helpful. And what I like about this one in particular is it's very accessible. Absolutely anybody can get a pen and paper.
That's it. They're going to just make sure that they don't put it in their phones, because that's not going to work.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that, because I do that all the time. I go, I'll just put it on my phone, and then before I know it, I'm going, I haven't done the thing. And I'll be like 15 minutes later, but I haven't done the thing that I needed to do. I'll try and navigate back.
I've done it. I've sometimes I'm holding onto my phone thinking, I know I didn't pick up my phone to look at this Instagram page. Yeah, I'm looking on it, or the WhatsApp video. Someone sent me and I'm like, hang on, was I supposed to phone someone? Because look, we live in an attention economy. Everything is, back when I started my business in 2002, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there was no social media. It's just you. But now, a lot of things are begging your attention. I switched off all of my notifications, because the attention should be in here.
Yeah.
The internal conversation. Are you speaking to yourself from a place of from a place of where you want to be in life, or is it from a place of lack and limitation? Because that means that the paradigm, the old program, is still running the show in the background.
I really like the way that you've explained that, about having, 95% of it just being, these habits, habitual habits. I remember right at the beginning of my kind of journey of kind of inner development, the thing that I would do every day, all day, was mantras. I was mantra and mantra and mantra and mantra, because I recognized that the only thing that was going to change these beliefs was repetition. And so I would go for walks. In fact, locally to where I am even now, I'd go for walks and I'd just be saying a mantra the whole time, just mantra. And I still use mantras now, because it takes time. The annoying thing with habits is they're pesky buggers that can come back. You got to and I think that's why addiction's so hard, because when something is an addiction, it's a habit that has become chronic, right? So it really overtakes you. It becomes completely unconscious. And so the repetition of that it has to be consistent all the time. And the moment it stops, it's easy for that pesky bugger to come back again.
Yeah, because we could be emotionally addicted to a certain emotion. We could be
Yes,
addicted to
yes,
emotions.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, look, I will tell you, I became aware of the fact that I was addicted to being right. So I would sometimes
Oh,
carry on mental arguments with people in the
mm,
past. Yeah.
mm,
You know, if I remember a conversation with someone who, said something that really triggered me a bit, and I'd be reliving the conversation thinking, I wish I'd said that. And, if I ever see them again, all of this is going on in here thinking, what? It's an addiction to an emotion.
yeah, 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 yeah,
You're
absolutely.
angry,
Yeah,
want to be right and you want to prove to them, but they're not even in your life anymore. You've not seen them
yeah,
for
yeah.
15,
You're
20
never going to
years.
speak to them again.
Never going to speak to them again. Yet you're still mentally arguing. Attention. Place your attention on where you want to be in life, not where you were. This
Yeah.
is what I teach people. It's all about the attention economy, because the attention, everything is out there. Before it was just newspapers and TV.
Mm,
Now you switch on the TV, you've got Netflix, you've got Apple TV, you've got Paramount, you've got so many things that you
so
could be
many.
watching for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you can watch it on your phone.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
think,
exactly. As well as everything else. Well, I think it has been just the most enjoyable hour and a half of my life. So this has been so wonderful. I've learned enormous amounts, things that I'm going to take away myself, and I'm going to do this 48-hour writing down thing. It's just been absolutely wonderful, and it's been so wonderful to listen to you because, as we know, you have such a wonderful voice to listen to. I could just carry on for hours. So it's been so wonderful. But something I like to do at the end of these sessions is if someone, I always say the same line, if someone can't be bothered to listen to this whole podcast, probably because their attention is being taken by something else, what would be the key take-home messages that you would want someone to take home?
well, first thing is, in order to master the mind, understand the mind, the very basics, which is understand that there is a program which has been built unconsciously. So when you consciously try to change it, understand what it is you're trying to change and how it's going to show up. Number two would be to seek out failure, okay? Because failure will help. And I'm talking about failure in not in business where you're going to lose a lot of money, but seek out failure, because failure is a resource. Seek out pain, constructive pain, because people are doing it already by jumping into ice baths. And the third part would be attention. Pay closer attention to what's going on internally, the internal dialogue. That is the biggest takeaway that I would say, because my life, my level of awareness has changed so much has changed so much since I started really paying attention to how I was speaking to myself. From where was I speaking to myself? From the old part or from the new part? You know? Yeah. So.
Well, I think that they are golden, absolutely golden. Did you have
Yeah.
another one there?
Yes, there was something else I was going to
Go on.
say. On Instagram, my Instagram handle is Ayo Health Strength. I think we're going to put this in the
Yeah, we'll
bio,
put it
aren't
in
we?
the bio. Yeah.
Yeah, because if anybody wants to train with me, I do certain live trainings. So if they add me on
Oh,
Instagram,
really?
I do a live training. So yeah, if you want to work out with me, I did one last week and it went really
Okay.
well. So
And that's it in the gym. You go to the.
I go with a tripod.
Oh,
I've
really?
been
That's
training there
cool.
for 20 years. I literally own the place.
Everyone, they all
No,
know.
no, no.
Yeah, yeah,
It's fine. It's part of the furniture.
yeah.
Other people do it. Other people do it. I'm not.
Okay, that's
So yeah,
amazing. I want to join this. I want to join this.
yeah,
That's really cool. Okay, I love it. I
yeah.
think that's a great thing. That's a
Add
great
me
thing
on
to join it.
Instagram. Add
Yeah,
me on
yeah. I
Instagram.
will, absolutely will. That's brilliant. Funny enough, I've it's one of those things I've always felt quite self-conscious to do in the gym is like take pictures and this kind of stuff. Maybe that will be the segue in for me to be like, oh, maybe I can do this too. Go through the pain of feeling insecure about it and do it
That's
anyway.
it.
Right? Yeah, feel the pain and do it anyway.
Good. Got it.
Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute joy, an absolute
Yeah.
joy.
Me too, Alistair. Real
And
joy. Thank you.
I think we're going to have another one of these
I
at
think
some
we
point.
have to.
I think we have to.
It
Yeah,
would be
we
rude
absolutely
not
have
to.
We'll have it in the gym.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.